The BBC dumps free news. It's chilling. The BBC Trust has an abysmal record. These were some of the phrases you attributed or used to describe the BBC last night. What sort of a BBC, if any, do you want?
Look, I think I was pretty clear. A much, much smaller one.
Okay.
The issue that we have in a marketplace where all of these distinctions have broken down, I mean, really, you have to understand that, sort of branded mediation, let's call it, right? Which is a terrible phrase, but it's the only way I can think about it. If it's just ones and zeros, it is indistinguishable one from another. The business models that govern it will be indistinguishable and interchangeable one from another. And in that case, you have to be very, very serious about saying, okay, if you have an unaccountable sort of entity, a huge intervention, I mean, we're talking about a lot of money. I mean, if you look at the BBC, I just have something just to sort of dramatize it for you.
It's a show and tell. Listen, look at this. James, if you hold it to that camera in the middle.
This
they'll give a close-up on the screen.
This stack of pound coins of 4.6 billion pounds is the money that the BBC has. And this 3.3 billion pounds is what all the free-to-air commercial broadcasters have. Now, that strikes me as an imbalance. I'm sorry, it just does. So when you're doing this, right, and this is, 2.5 times what it costs to fight a war, for example, you have to be very, very serious about the consequence. And the idea that you could say that this stack of pound coins here does not have a consequence is wrong. What happens is that the BBC says, you know what, I've got this license fee, it's universal, so what I have to do is, because people don't like universal tax, they'll say, yes, I pay for this because I like, they say, I like David Attenborough, and I like some of these shows, I like this and that. But what happens is you have to then justify that, and you have to make sure that you're dampening that opposition, because as soon as there's one segment of society that says you're not serving me, then it undermines the argument for a universal hypothecated tax. So you can't have that. So you have to serve everyone. And that becomes very, very dangerous. And I think the organization, which is just a brilliantly designed kind of system for kind of unaccountable, self-perpetuating growth over generations, is doing exactly what it was designed to do. And I feel confident that people are not so different that you find huge pockets of people that say, actually, I would like to be patronized, I would like poor service, I would like limited choice, and I'll have that, thank you. I don't think you find big pockets of people.
We won't take a vote on that one.
So, but so here's the thing, though. In journalism, right, written word or audiovisual, the key thing is going to be, and as it is already, right, but much more acutely as we go to a place where we have to charge a fair price for this investment, is how do you differentiate, right? So I would say, the incredible work that we see coming out of Sky News, for example, in Afghanistan, is something that is a differential, that is something that is special. I think the stuff. If you look at, last week when al-Megrahi went back to Tripoli, there was only one UK national newspaper that had someone on the ground in Tripoli that could land that interview and get that done, and it was The Times. There's only one national newspaper in the UK with a full-time correspondent in Baghdad. It's The Times. There, is a determination to invest in journalism because we believe it has value, and we trust people to go and pay for that. We trust them every day at the newsstand. Why is it so impossible to believe that they might not be trusted in another environment? The fundamental issue, though, is that the crowding out of the opportunity for profit that occurs when you have that intervention that is the BBC, right, and the local council. Wait a second. The crowding out that occurs, right, makes the UK the hardest place in the world by far to pull this off. Look, I think there's a very good argument that says that a market failure test has to apply, right? And there's a very good argument for that. And you then have to square that with how you deal with a universal license fee. And I don't know the answer to that, but that's where that tension is, because the universality of the license fee is what creates the urge, the necessity to dampen opposition to it, by going and doing things for everyone, right? And if everyone likes it, then the market would probably be doing that instead. So I think there's a good argument for market failure. I think there's another thing, though, just to illustrate this, though, that there's also just like a question of common sense, which is, and I think this is really important, right? And I think common sense is just self-awareness, just like a modicum of judgment and self-reflection about the activities of the corporation. And this is just a few of the examples of the sorts of activities that we've decided should be in the realm of the state. And what we have here is we have Gardener's World magazine, we have Top Gear magazine, we have this one, which is the Doctor Who Adventure magazine, we have Wildlife magazine, we have Top of the Pops magazine, we have The Sky at Night, we have Olive, which I believe is about food, we have the travel guide business, right? The travel guide business, which, I mean, I just don't understand why, a guide to nightclubs in Mykonos is something that kind of the government needs to be doing. I don't know why they would do that. And you have things that people use, the iPlayer. You have the BBC shop. I'm not sure where that is, but it's a shop that's there. You have these things. You have all of these things here. This is radio and these things. You have this sort of joint venture, this UK TV business, which, again, some of these things are of quality. I'm not saying they're all junk, right? I'm just saying that they don't seem to be, on the face of it, really the appropriate place for the state, if you will. And I know people say, oh, it's not the state. Don't stop saying that. It is, okay? It's a public institution owned by taxpayers. It just is. Is that right? I think it's not.